Welcome to Blitz Interviews. Like the game of chess, it's only lasts 10 minutes. I have a pleasure today to talk with Nathan about asset management. Nathan, can you tell me about yourself quickly and what do you do day by day?
Very quickly, yes, I can. So I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Axonius. We are, by all accounts, the fastest growing cybersecurity company in history. And every day I try to get the word out that this is a problem that can be solved.
So what is asset management and how it's different than Cmdb?
Great question. So to me, a CMDB is exactly what the last two letters mean. It's a database, right? It's something that can store information. And it's as good as the data that gets into it and how often that data is updated. So if you have a CMDB that knows about every single laptop, desktop, virtual machine, cloud instance, and it's always updated, then it can be great for knowing exactly what you have. But what we find is that those things are usually woefully out of date and they just don't move at the speed of our environments today. And so the way we think of asset management is you already have all these different solutions that know all of the devices, all of the users, all of the cloud applications that you have. So why not use that data, bring it all together, and then you can all, at any given time, understand exactly what you have and how those things are managed and secured.
I always tell people, not just me, a lot of people, if we don't know it exists, we cannot protect it. And this is why I think asset management, for me, it's very, very important. Give me some example of a good use of asset management.
I totally agree with you. And I think to me, the biggest challenge here is just the speed and the rate of change. We talk about this idea of complexity. It's like the second law of thermodynamics, right? Everything gets more complicated. And that's true today. And things just change so quickly in our environments. And here's an example, right? So let's say that you've got a virtual machine. It's in the cloud. And you've got vulnerability assessment tools that do a fantastic job of scanning for vulnerabilities. But if they don't know where to look, they'll never scan, they'll never find that vulnerability that you want to address. And so that's just one example out of a million where unless you know where to look, all of your tools, as great as they are, they won't be able to protect you. And so just bridging that gap between the tools you have, the assets you have, where they are, and how quickly they're changing and moving, that's really what we're trying to talk about here. And it's something that can be solved because all the data is there.
You bring a very interesting point about cloud, and we'll touch base on it in a second. Before that, what are the mandatory or the most popular tools you feed to your environment or you need for asset management? Endpoint, SIEM, vulnerability management, DNS, DHCP?
All of the above, right? I mean, so it can be anything. I mean, you mentioned endpoint, and that's usually what we see the most of. Something like Active Directory. If you're talking about the network, whether that's the network console or any of the admin interfaces for any of the networking gear. So you've also got vulnerability assessment tools. So we see all of these. We've got like 450-ish integrations, I think, and so that's what we end up seeing. Like a new customer will connect something that's agent based. So whether that's an endpoint protection tool or something that's that is resident on a device that can see configuration, a scanner, networking gear, and then the list goes on and on. You've got so many tools out there. So the more you have, the more complete the data set, the higher the probability that you can get to all of it. So it really is the more the better. But we see those like 5 to 8 basic first tools that everyone uses. And then after that, you start to see all these like smaller ones that's why we're at 450 integrations, because we have some tools that are very niche, like IoT, those sorts of things.
Is asset management changed? Like, actually, let me rephrase it. How people used to do asset management 5 years ago?
Yeah, if you're talking about 5 years ago, asset management was an Excel spreadsheet saying how many laptops you had and the software that you have licenses for, right? Maybe that's 10 years ago. Maybe I'm a little bit overstating it, but that's really what it was. And when you're talking about asset management, and this is something that we ran into the very beginning that I think was a real challenge. When I'd say to someone in security, how do you deal with asset management? They're like, I don't. That's somebody else. That's the endpoint team. That's those guys over there. We don't deal with asset management. But then when I would say, but you're a downstream consumer of the data, right? Oh yeah, we have data in a CMDB, but I can't trust that for incident response. It's changed so dramatically because what was our environment 5 years ago, 10 years ago, looks completely different from what it is today. And so there's this convergence of IT and security where everyone is a consumer of the data. And so asset management now is, how do I understand everything that I need to both manage and secure? And I think it's now a bigger piece of security than it was 2 years ago.
You mentioned cloud. Cloud could be, it should be quite dynamic. How do I do asset management there if I have serverless, if I have containers, if I have maybe EC2s going up and down every couple of minutes?
Yeah, so the beauty of it is that, first of all of that is true, and it is such a rapidly changing environment. But the cloud providers all have APIs. They have great granular, detailed information that you can get at. And so when you look at like our AWS adapter, all of the information that we can get there, it's amazing, right? So you can get that data damn near close to real time. And so what we do is, for every adapter that we have, and that's the API integrations with all these tools I'm talking about, you can set your fetch time, right? So like, for instance, if I want to fetch data from EC2, I want that as close to real time as I can possibly get it, and that's fine. If I want to do that with Active Directory, I probably don't want to do that. It's probably a really bad idea. So the beauty of cloud with all of the different providers, whether it's AWS, GCP, Oracle, you name it, right? You can get that information through their APIs, and you can get it really close to right this second.
For the last almost 2 years, unfortunately or fortunately, it's different stories, but we do work from home. How do you do asset collection when people work from home? How does it change for you or for the environment in general?
Yeah, so I mean, as long as you can get to the data, what we do is we correlate it all together. So whether it's getting the on-prem network stuff, we can still get at that through the console. We get the endpoint protection information from that admin console, right? So we don't really need any endpoint presence whatsoever. So I don't care if it's in a home or if it's on the work network. As long as we can get at the data, that's really the only challenge, is get me the data. Then what we do is we correlate it all together and show kind of the intersection of all the tools, all the data, and all the assets.
I think asset management is one of the also key for compliance, because metrics, or basically, as you mentioned, I need the data to provide some information. If any laptops got stolen, God forbid, how do I know it was encrypted? Where do I go? So can I use asset management as a tool to understand that all my assets are encrypted, have endpoint on something like this, like a metrics for me?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So whether it's something as broad as like the CIS 20, I think it's 18 now, or if it's specific like HIPAA or PCI or whatever, every single one of them start with know what you have for assets, and then it moves on from there, right? So the first, most basic for every one of the regulations or frameworks is around just understanding everything you have. And then it goes on from there. Like you mentioned, make sure that everything's encrypted. Almost all of them that I've seen have something around, frequency of scanning and addressing vulnerabilities and so on, right? So in every one of these, asset management is at the very beginning, but also can show you whether everything is being scanned, whether things are encrypted, whether users have the correct password difficulty, whatever that is. So yeah, absolutely. Not only is it essential at the very beginning, but it also can show you and ensure that the rest of those requirements are being met. Scanning frequency, you name it. So 100%. And that's one of the things that we do around like the CIS controls, right? So CIS controls for like AWS or GCP, they have scored rules. Well, if you can get the data from the APIs and just say, is this being met? Then you can go through the CIS benchmarks for the cloud providers because you're getting that data right from the APIs. That's how you find it.
So because you have a true view on all the assets in the company, you can easily correlate who has what, because I can also go to vulnerability management to do it, but then I'm not sure I have everything there. Nathan,
Yep.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. It's a big topic and very important topic.
All right. Thank you. This was a lot of fun.